Speak up, speak out. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the show where you can show your love, no doubt about it. Where self-love and self-worth are the topics of the day. Right here on the Just Blah Show, where love is the only way. And here are your hosts, Barb and Faye.
Hey, this is Barb.
And this is Faye, and welcome to Just Blah. Thanks for joining us again. And today we're going to be talking about kind of the differences, because this comes up for Barb quite a bit, the differences are between like a counselor, a coach, and a therapist. And so Barb, we thought would be, Barb and I thought it would be good to maybe just kind of differentiate between what each one does and what her specialty is, or what her preference is for which one she falls under. And Barb, go ahead and give us a quick explanation of that.
Okay, so they're just like any type of therapy or therapists, counselors, there's many different types. And that's the same for life coaching. If you've been on social media, there's all the way from business life coaches all the way through personal life coaches and anything in between. Identify myself or specialize in what's called ASE, which is authentic self-empowerment coaching. So it's an integrative life coaching style.
Okay, and what's that based off of? Like, what would be the type of approach that would be? What does that look like?
So what that looks like, so what really the difference, for at least from my understanding, is coaches aren't there to one diagnose or to give advice. Coaches there are to guide, ask questions, point out and suggest goals and help support people in those goals. And really, it's like 80% listening and 20% asking questions and just helping to lead the person into what they see is best for themselves. I have worked with clients where they are actively working with a therapist or a counselor, and they give permission to share notes back and forth, because sometimes when you work with a coach, it feels a little bit more relaxed and it doesn't feel so what's the word, clinical, that they might open up a little bit. So coaches do that, very few do, but I have done that in the past, and shared notes and things of that nature, so it can help aid in their, whatever their diagnosis is or whatever they're struggling with or trying to maintain in their life, so we can find a happy balance for them and their expression into life.
I see. And so, what is this kind of based off of? I mean, what type of, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? What would be the influence as far as the style? I'm kind of thinking this is leaning more towards Maslow. And if you can kind of explain that, I think that's kind of where it's kind of like an accountability, responsibility type of approach. Is that correct?
Right. So Abraham Maslow, if you study like psychology in school, you're going to come across his hierarchy of needs. And so he talks about the basic needs of, home, physical needs, your home, your food, safety, and then it goes up into the upper tiers where it's up and about self-empowerment, and then a higher self is spirituality. So, but if those basic needs at the bottom aren't met, then it's very difficult you can't bounce through the, different levels. You really have to have the foundational set so you can move and feel safe in the next level of hierarchy of needs. And you can look it up, it's all over the internet. And so his approach makes sense when you're, after talking to so many people, when I'm talking to somebody who is like in a homeless shelter or struggling with maybe being kicked out of her home or something like that, obviously those are going to be the forefront of the issues that they want to have immediate addressing, of course, right? So the emotional state, we kind of touch on is like how can we be proactive instead of reactive, but that honestly we're trying to figure out how to get the housing situation figured out, or maybe if it's an abusive physical, how do we approach that? How do we remove ourselves from that? Do you want to remove yourself from that? So it's all those things mixed in there, and it does kind of blend the lines sometimes. And you have to say, I am a coach and not a counselor, because we tend to give opinions, and that can become very dangerous if you're fixing people instead of just guiding them and helping them to find the answer.
I see. So a therapist would be more addressing the clinical needs, whatever the diagnosis is, where a coach is more kind of like a guide, kind of like, let's talk about your options, right? Let's explore. And so really to be an effective coach, I would think that someone would need to have their basic needs met in order to even move forward in pursuing, say, self-development or self-awareness. Because if they're in the survival mode, that kind of goes to the wayside, right? Because it comes about meeting the needs and not so much about, not that you don't grow from it, it's just a rough way to grow from it. But I think the primary focus at that point would be your basic needs, right?
Well, yeah, because where your focus is where your energy flow is. So somebody who is coaching and they're having these issues, say living out of a car, because I mean, I ran groups for I think 4 years. And I mean, I got the whole gamut, right, of run. And so if somebody's living out of their car or just lost their job, their focus is not so much going to be about the emotional state, other than when it's so high and it's causing them to be limited in choices because they can't calm themselves down. So coaching in that sense would help with them. It's like, okay, let's take a deep breath. It's to help them to relax so they can see how they can move forward, what choices they do have in whatever capacity, and then to really help them find the connection they need for the people who are, the ones trained to help people like that, without making and letting them keep their dignity and honor without making it wrong, because we all have so many issues, right? So I mean, if we pull the curtain back, we all have our addictions, and we all know like drinking and sex and all those things, but there's addictions to people, which is mine. I was very Codependency is a form of addiction in my view, because it's like at needing to have that hit, and when we get the hit, it causes that cycling. That's a cyclical manner, can be very addictive. So yes. What's coming to mind, though, what I wanted to circle back around to, there is so many different types of uh, therapy sessions. Like for me, I did Gestalt therapy, which is more of cognitive rewiring of the brain, and really digging into how I'm feeling, because I had such a disconnect of how I felt, because that was survivor mode for me. So I had to learn how to reconnect and recognize feelings. So that is probably more, I would say, hands-on, where you can have a more clinical type of approach, with some where they actually do diagnosis, and it's just take this test and this is what you have type of thing. So it just depends. I mean, like I said, it runs the gamut. So you really have to do your research, talk to people that maybe have the same struggles as you, or challenges, and if they're thriving, to ask them how they did it and what do they recommend. Because honestly, that's how I kind of walked through my thing, was just asking people, well, I can see that you did this and this was your outcome. That doesn't mean I got the same outcome, but I wanted the same opportunity to make that happen for myself.
I see. Because I'm, thinking back on my experiences, going back to my very early 20s when I actually went through some
Yeah.
therapy. And I'm like, okay, and I've done counseling too. And there was a distinct difference. I think therapy was very, for me, it was really just having to own it and walk into it. And I think it was a good place for me to be, was therapy. For counseling, it was more of a where I couldn't make a decision, so it was almost like someone helping me walk, or like kind of look at the options and
Right.
trying to come to a realization of about myself and the people involved in the situations.
Exactly. That's just exactly how it's done. So really as a coach, the main, at least my understanding, the main purpose of it is just being supportive, helping define, because when we don't have clarity and we're confused, to define what is going on so you can find out what the choices are, the needs, and how can we go about that. And then to establish those steps for them to do and support them in that step, and really to get a commitment. And I basically say I'm a professional emotional cheerleader, because my job is to make sure that you remember the power you have as a person to create choices for yourself or define them, so you can choose how you want to show up in that.
Okay, well, I think that's a good place to leave this right now. And, obviously this is very much skimming over what this
Right,
is, but,
right.
it's just something where you can just kind of let people know who you are and where your background is, based in. And so I do appreciate your sharing that information. And with that, I'm going to say, go find your joy and have a wonderful day. And Barb,
Yep, you can't do you wrong.
yeah,
Talk to
that's
you
true.
soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.